recently had the opportunity to meet with Nate Solon, a FIDE master, poker pro, and data scientist. Nate did what's called a database review for my online rapid chess games, looking for patterns and areas of improvement. Because I climbed the rating ladder relatively quickly, and because I've never had any formal coaching, I was interested to see how Nate would assess my weaknesses. I've done my own mass reviews of my games in the past, admittedly without the added bonus of being a data scientist, but I wanted to compare my own observations too to see what exactly I was missing in my own self-analysis.
But yeah, overall, my impression is like, I think you're like a really solid, well-rounded player. I don't see like any single like glaring, oh, like you have a huge weakness or like here's this giant hole in your game that you just need to plug. Um,
Right.
it's more so, just like a few places to like sort of refine.
So to start off this review, we talked about my openings.
So for the most part, London as white, French as black against D4 or against E4 rather, that seemed like very stable. You've been using those for a long time. Like your results with them are pretty good, pretty solid. Yeah, so
Yes.
those seem quite stable, but it seemed like as black versus one D4, that was like the
Yeah,
one
that's
area where you're
where
figuring things out.
yeah, I'm trying to learn the Grunfeld and I don't know it very well, obviously, because I'm in the process of learning it. And a lot of times those 10-minute games are where I end up practicing it. So if there's a line I don't know, it kind of falls apart pretty quickly.
Like while your openings are pretty effective overall, I think you're kind of in some cases you're sort of in a little bit of a rut of like playing the same, like with the London, for example, playing like the same moves, not just like through move 4, but like through move 12. And
Yeah.
sometimes that works, but sometimes it's also like, hey, your opponent's actually doing something really weird. Like your opponent's literally not developing their pieces. So like instead of going for a standard London setup, you could just like go over there and like kill them right now.
As a proud London player, of course, I was like, no, no, but I knew he was right. I do have a tendency to stick to my comfort zone in the opening, even if that means missing opportunities to achieve a more winning position when my opponent makes mistakes in the opening.
I think the way you can improve that is like not so much like getting more booked up, but just like maybe more expanding some more plans. Maybe I can share screen actually.
And I will say too, with the London, like obviously I've committed to that for basically like the
Mhm.
entire time I've been playing chess. It is something I'm thinking about potentially switching up just to like get more experience in different kinds of openings. A lot of times in the London, you get very much the same kinds of positions. And I feel like long term that might not necessarily be good for my chess. I don't know if this is necessarily the point where I should be switching it up and trying new things or like go as drastic as trying like E4. But yeah, it is something I've been thinking about. But anyway,
Yeah, no, I think that's smart, and I think it's a good idea because yeah, especially I don't know if you have any like specific ambitions of like what level you want to reach, but I would say like sort of the higher your ambitions, the more important it is to be able to play like different structures,
yeah.
and not only be a specialist in one thing. So if you're kind of setting your sights to like go a lot farther, I think that would definitely make sense, or even just for fun, like because sometimes it just gets old to play the same stuff. Actually, this game was interesting. So like right away, this is an example of a few things like right away your opponent's doing something crazy. Right. So here's the first example where I'd say like H3 standard London move, not really necessary here. And you could just castle. I mean, I guess, generally the idea of this move is to, if black's going to play knight H5 to open up a retreat for your bishop, right?
Yeah.
If black is already like tempting fate so much that if they would like spend another move to play something like knight H5 here, um, like, I don't know, this is just not something I'm scared of. I feel like
Yeah,
if
because I
I
just have everything developed and they
like you
have
have
like,
everything developed, they're kings in the center, they have no development. So like
yeah.
black winning the bishop pair is not going to be a problem here because they should like there's sort of like so much you can get away with as far as neglecting development, and then there's a critical mass where you just get blown off the board. And I feel like black is like very much reaching that point in a position like this. So like yeah, something like A4, like opening up the
Mm.
position.
So my first major takeaway was simply to consider more moves, potentially more exciting moves, and to not play defensively when I had clear opportunities for attacks.
Like here I would be thinking, well, if I want to move this bishop, F5 looks like a pretty active diagonal to put it on. Or you could even play definitely knight F5 is an option here, grabbing the bishop pair as well. Like again, it's a balance in rapid because there is definitely you do want to play quite quickly in the opening and sort of stay in your comfort zone. But at the same time, like there are definitely often opportunities for you to take advantage of mistakes your opponents are making, like earlier in the opening.
We also talked about some other openings that I've been struggling with.
As far as like playing against 1d4, so why the Grunfeld?
I've tried different things against d4. I feel like it suits often what I'm looking for against d4, which is like not something where I'm just going to be like getting crushed. If I don't play the Grunfeld, it can become more of a locked pawn structure. And I'm never exactly sure like how to break through with like e5 or c5 or.
Well, first of all, like as a French player, aren't you like used to like not being able to move any of your pieces? Isn't that like your whole jam? Whenever an opening's not working for you, like basically you can either change openings or try to get better at your existing opening.
Next, we talked about time management. Now, I've always considered myself a very slow player. I tend to get into time trouble a lot, but what Nate noticed was actually a little surprising.
Anyways, Aim Chess's time management thing is based on like whether you're ahead or behind on the clock. But I ended up like sort of feeling similar. Yes, you are behind on the clock more often than not, but I actually felt like you were managing your time pretty well. It seems like the player pool in general is just playing, I think, too fast in 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's really annoying because I'm so slow. I'm like, oh, I gotta catch up.
Yeah, but see, I think actually like your time, I think what you're doing is like makes more sense and is more effective than what a lot of your opponents are doing. Because what I was seeing is like a lot of opponents playing on pace to have like 5 minutes plus left at move 40, which is like how long a typical game lasts. So essentially they're only using half of the time they have available to them. So it seems to me that a lot of people are just playing 10-minute like blitz, but like you have that extra time, so you kind of would like to use it to make better moves and better decisions.
One thing I'm definitely going to incorporate into my game reviews in the future is looking at moves where I spent a lot of time and trying to figure out why.
There were a few spots where I think you got stuck on like non-critical moves. So here's one of like 1 minute and 12 seconds on Queen A4 check.
Sometimes, of course, in critical positions, you need to spend more time, but in other cases, it doesn't make as much sense.
I think for pretty much everyone, like sometimes you just like freeze in weird moments. But sometimes that can be very helpful too, because if you can sort of figure out like what you were thinking about at that point and like what you were struggling with, it's often like a big clue of something you can improve. But yeah, this would just be like another like 1 minute 18 seconds on Bishop E8, which is like, yeah, I don't think this is an especially critical moment. I can kind of see it. It's like sometimes when you transition from one phase to another, like you go from the middle game to the end game, it can make sense to take a bit of time to like get your bearings and sort of develop some sort of plan. But yeah, I think this is another one where like not really a critical position. So here,
Oh, I remember this game.
yes. So up until here, you were cruising, and then after this, it suddenly was a game again because there's this pin here. So it's
Yeah.
more complicated. But okay, so here's the moment with again over a minute. So 108 for Bishop B5. But then so the reason I picked this one out is I think if I was playing this in rapid, I would be really struggling to even find a different move. The computer is pointing out that like B4 is actually interesting. And I guess like opening up this rook to come over here. Yeah, so I don't know if you I don't know how, like how recent this particular game was, or if you like remember your thought process at all in this moment.
Yeah, I think it was just the realization that like, oh God, I screwed this up. Suddenly I'm going to be down in exchange. But then just like realizing that there was nothing I could do probably took a hot second. But yeah, if I remember right, I ended up winning because of those past pawns over on the side there. And the bishop pair was just came in clutch.
Yeah, and I like those moments of like sudden change when like you get hit with an unexpected move and the position is suddenly much different than you thought it was, can definitely be a time where it's like hard to reorient. If you feel yourself like getting stuck or going in circles, for me, like being really explicit about candidate moves is often a way to like get back to center of like just being like, okay, like what moves am I even considering in the like what actually are my candidate moves? Let me just list them out. What is the position that each is leading to? Compare those positions to each other and just go with one.
Before our meeting, Nate had asked if I had any specific concerns about my game, and one thing I had mentioned was endgames.
Yes, you asked me about endgames. I think like I didn't notice your endgames being a weakness, like I think you actually played some really good endgames, so I definitely wouldn't say that was like standing out to me as a weakness at all. This thing from chess.com inside, I don't know if you've ever looked at this. I feel like a lot of people don't know about this feature, this chess.com insights.
Yeah,
According
I've
to
seen this.
this, I guess this would be suggestive that like maybe you're stronger in the opening, in the middle, in the end game, but I don't know. I wouldn't like read too much into this. This was one exception I saw just, and I thought this one was interesting just in terms of like how to think about converting a winning position. So here you're up at night, so clearly you're winning. White has this pawn, but it's like blockaded, so it's not really a big deal. But one of the most important principles is to stop the opponent's counterplay. So here, king g7, I mean, you're following an endgame principle rather of bringing your king to the center. But I think from a human perspective, the easiest move here is definitely rook b7, just to eliminate this pawn. So white can take, but your take. And now with that passed pawn gone, white really has nothing going for them at all.
Another concern I'd had was missing opportunities for attack and instead playing a little bit too defensively.
Right. This was a sort of example of being like opportunistic in terms of attacking. So here with the opponent's king in the center, you had a tactical shot here.
I spent an embarrassingly long time trying to find the correct tactic and continuation here. Even though I had the right initial instinct to play knight takes f7, I was having trouble seeing it all the way to the end.
Oh, then I can check and win the queen?
Yep. Yeah, then it's just knight. Actually, I think queen takes e6 wins there too, but knight takes e6 is
I see.
fork. So yeah, this is the type of sort of opportunistic tactical situation, because I think it's a little unexpected, because like in this position, you're kind of expecting black to castle, in which case it's kind of a normal position. There's not really any tactics yet. But then this knight d7 move, kind of putting black's pieces into an awkward position and creating this momentary opportunity with the king in the center.
We also discussed my struggles sometimes with converting obviously winning positions.
Yeah, so here actually you drove here's a good one where you added some wrinkles to the London with like a Jobava setup, and it actually worked out quite well in that you got really a nice attack going.
I was gonna say this is recent because I remember I don't think I converted this very well, or if at all.
Yeah, in this one you ended up losing. I think this was, I mean, you definitely built up a really strong position, but this was one moment where you could have put the game away.
After staring at this position for a while, I finally figured out the seemingly obvious move I had missed. I don't think I realized it until Nate made me sit there and actually figure it out, how shallow my calculation in these kinds of positions actually is. I was looking for a lot of different candidate moves, but I wasn't thinking deeply into the potential lines that I was considering.
F4 is definitely a reasonable move, but there is one forcing move that you haven't considered yet.
Well, gosh, I think in the game I played rook h7, which is coming to mind again, but I don't think that's forcing enough.
Yeah, similar, but there's a more forcing move with the rook.
Oh, it's a rook h8.
Yeah, because if takes, you have a skewer.
Right. Okay. I remember seeing this after the game, now that you mention it.
Yeah.
And I think just being aware that these are the kinds of positions where my nerves often get the best of me can help inform my study plan in the future.
I didn't necessarily like get this sense from like just going over your games, but analyzing, I think probably like the biggest area that like your highest leverage area to like gain those points and improve at this moment would be to like work on this type of tactics and calculation. Because like moments like this are so high leverage in a game, because it's just that one moment where like if you find the move, you win. If you don't, it's equal or you're even losing.
So this database review gave me a lot of insights into my weaknesses, but knowing the patterns are there doesn't mean anything unless I take the concrete steps to actually improve on them. So applying this to my daily study plan, I'm going to be spending a lot more time on more challenging calculation exercises. I'm also going to brush up and solidify my opening repertoire, potentially looking to expand it to just get more experience in different positions in the future. And when I'm actually in a game, I'm going to make a point in critical positions especially to name specific candidate moves and then calculate concrete lines. This kind of review with a stronger player was really helpful for me, and If nothing else, I hope it can give you some insights into how to use your own game data to come up with a solid plan for continued improvement. Thanks so much to Nate for doing this database review for me. I believe he'll be offering it as a coaching service in the future, so I would highly recommend taking advantage of that. Nate also recently co-authored a book on evaluation, and he writes an excellent blog. I'll link to everything in the description. Go check him out. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.